Alrighty, welcome back, boys and girls. It's your math man, Mr. Shank, coming to you live from Walker Middle School. And in this video, what we're going to be working on is some simple rectangular prisms. And we're going to be finding that surface area and volume. So we're going to make sure that we are using those formulas that I have displayed. So we're going to say the surface area is going to be equal to 2 times the length times the width, plus 2 times the length times the height, plus 2 times the height times the width. However, for volume, you just have to multiply those 3 dimensions together. So it'd be the length times the width times the height. So again, the steps are always going to be like this. So we're going to say we first want to label or define what our dimensions are. We write our formula down. We substitute in our values for our variables, and then we simplify. So number 1, it says to find that surface area, and then it actually gives you a net. And that's the same thing as just having, all these shapes spread out, but it's the same idea. You can still find the surface area. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to say, well, let's have 15. Let's say 15 is going to be our length. We can say 8 is going to be our width, and 6 is going to be our height. So we can write it like this. We can say L is going to be, L is equal to 15. We can say 8 is equal to W, and let's actually write that the other way around. We can say W equals 8, and we can say H, our height, is going to be 6. So again, we're finding the surface area, and so we're going to say the formula for that is going to be surface area is equal to 2 times the length times the width, plus 2 times the length times the height, plus 2 times the height times the width. Again, we substitute in our values for our variables. So I'm going to say, all right, my surface area is going to be equal to, so I can use parentheses to show multiplication. I say my length is 15, my width is 8. Then we have 2 times my length, which is 15, times my height, which is 6. And then we can say we have to add in that last part. So we can say 2 times that height, which is 6, times our width, which is 8. And if you need to write that on another line, that's totally fine. So now what we're going to do is simplify. So again, make sure you can use that Desmos calculator or just simplify carefully. So we're going to say 2 times 15 times 8 is going to be 240. So we're going to say surface area is equal to 240, and we have plus, and then I can do 2 times 15 times 6 is going to be 180. And we have plus, we have 2 times 6 times 8 is 96. So plus 96. Now, again, that final step is just adding those 3 together. And so we're going to say surface area is going to be equal to, so we have 96 plus 180 plus 240. So grand total of 516. Again, always put those units. And since we're talking about surface area, it's going to be units to the second power. For that number 2, still finding surface area, and it has those values there. Again, make sure you can just follow along those steps. So again, I can say, let's actually say we have our length, our width, and our height. Again, as long as you define what those are and stick to them, then it will be totally fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, my length is 4, my width is 11, and my height is going to be 3. Make sure you have that surface area formula written out for yourself. Again, you will be given a formula sheet at any point in time, but it is helpful to get familiar with each and every one of those shapes. Substitute in my values for my variables, and so I can say, all right, surface area is equal to, I have 2 times 4 times 11. I have 2 times 4 times, let's have our height as 3. We have plus 2 times, we have our height 3, and our width of 11. Make sure you can simplify by multiplying those values together. And so I can say, all right, let's have 2 times 4 times 11. So we're gonna say surface area is equal to 88 plus, and we have 2 times 4 times 3, it's gonna be 24. And then lastly, we have 2 times 3 times 11 again, which is gonna be 66. Add these 3 values together to get your grand total. So we're gonna say surface area is equal to 66 plus 24 plus 88. So we're gonna have a grand total of 178. Make sure we have our units. So we're gonna say millimeters squared. I like to circle my answer, that way it's easier to follow along. And then lastly, at the very bottom, we have number 3. It says find the volume. So now we want to make sure that, well, what does that mean? Well, we're going to have to now use that volume formula at the top. So let's follow along with that. So again, I can label first. I can say I have my length, my width, and my height. And for this one, we actually notice it. This rectangular prism is a cube. That means that each of those sides are equal. So we're going to say that length is 4, my width is 4, and my height is also 4. Formula is very simple. Volume equals length times width times height. And we're going to say, all right, substitute those values in. So we're going to say 4 times 4 times 4, which is the same thing as 4 cubed. Again, you can do that two different ways. I can do, let's do 4 times 4 times 4, which is 64, or you can use that, let's have this in here, you can use that exponent button. So I'm going to say 4, and I can say it's the exponent of 3, which is also 64. So I'm going to say my volume is going to be 64, and I'm going to say my inches to the 3rd power, since we're talking about volume. To the back, we now have some word problems, but we know those are super simple because all we have to do is follow those same steps. So it says, Thelma and David built a rectangular recycling bin that is 6 feet wide, 12 feet long, and 14 feet high. How many cubic feet of trash can fit inside the bin? So some key parts to this is it's going to say 6 feet wide, 12 feet long, and 14 feet high. And then also too, since it says cubic feet, we know that we are finding that volume. If you want to, you can draw a picture, whatever works best for you, but I want to make sure that I can label it carefully. So let's do this. I want to say, all right, well, if I need to draw a picture, again, I'm drawing a rectangular prism. Again, it kind of looks something like this. I have 2 squares that are inside of each other. And let's say something like this. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be an artist to be a mathematician, but it does certainly help. All right, so we can say this. I'm saying that I have 6, 14, and 12. And so we said this, I need to say, all right, what is the length? L, we're gonna say it's going to be 12. So we're gonna say my width is 12. My width is going to be 6. I can use the word problem that you have. And my height is going to be 14. So this is height, this is my length, and this is my width. Can have that formula from before. I remember off the top of my head, but it is helpful to always double check. So I have 2 times the length times the width, plus 2 times the length times the height, plus 2 times the height times the width. Plug in those values for the variables carefully. So we're going to say surface area is equal to, and then we have 2, and then we have times 12 times our height, which is 14, or excuse me, our width, which is 6. Then we have 2 times our length, which is 12. Now we can do times height, which is 14. And we have plus 2 times our height, 14, and our width, which is 6. Make sure you are multiplying those values carefully. So I'm going to say surface area is going to be equal to, let's type this out, let's say 2 times 12 times 6 is going to be 144. Then I have plus, so I'm going to say 2 times 12 times 14 is going to be 336. And then we have 2 times 14 times 6 is going to be 168. Last step, add those together carefully for yourself. And so we're going to say, all right, surface area is going to be equal to 168 plus 336 plus 144. A grand total of 648. Again, make sure you use those units carefully. So we're going to say feet, and since we talked about careful, I already messed up. This is surface area, so this is going to be feet squared. However, that's okay. We need to find the volume. That one's simple. Again, we say volume is equal to length times width times height. Multiply those values together, so we're going to say volume is equal to 12 times 6 times 14. Luckily for you guys, I caught my mistake before I submitted it. So we're going to say volume is equal to, well, let's see what we have. We'll do 12 times 6 times 14. You can see that, hey, that's going to be a different value than our surface area. So make sure that you say for yourself, I have volume. Again, I checked the problem as I went through it. I said, all right, hey, I actually need the volume for this. So my answer is going to be 1,008 feet cubed, since we're talking about volume. Lastly, at the very bottom, it says this. It says Adam is building a rectangular planter without a top. The planter will be 7 inches wide, 16 inches long, and 10 inches high. How much wood is needed to make the bottom and sides of the planter? So again, when you're thinking about this, if you need to draw out the net, that's totally fine. But you're just saying, okay, I now have a box without a top to it. So I'm gonna only have those 5 remaining sides. So when you go to draw it out, let me actually do it like this. Say I have my box, and let me do it like this. However, remember, since it says without that top, so we're saying we are going to have that top part is not going to be on top there. So you need to be very careful of that. So what does that mean? Well, it means this. So when we have that bottom part, we're going to say, okay, we're going to say let's have our length as 16. We have our width as 7, and we have our height as 10. Be mindful of this when you're thinking, okay, well, what's going to be that top part? I'm going to say that is going to be that first length times the width. So we're only going to have one of those on the side here. So I'm going to say this, my new formula for this, my surface area, since I'm only having that bottom part, I only am going to have one of those length times the width. However, my rest of my formula is going to be the same. Again, if you need to draw out the net, that's totally fine for yourself. So let's actually say it like this. We said it's 10 inches high, so let's say h equals 10. We said 7 inches wide, so we'd say 7 is w, and we can say 16 long, so we'd say L is 16. Again, substitute in your values for your variables. So we're going to say the surface area with these 5 sides is going to be, let's say, 16 times 7 plus 2 times 16 times 10 plus 2 times 10 times 7. Multiply those values carefully for yourself. So we're going to say 16 times 7 is going to be 112. So surface area is equal to 112 plus, we have 2 times 16 times 10, which is 320. And then we could say 2 times 10 times 7 is going to be 140. Again, add those values together. And so we're going to say that surface area of those 5 sides is going to be 112 plus 320 plus 140, which is going to be 572, we'll say inches squared. So again, that's the surface area. That's the surface area. Surface area of the 5 sides needed. Again, be able to picture that out for yourself, draw out and label what you need, and as always, super slam that subscribe button.